Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Saya saat ini didampingi oleh dua orang yang tingginya di atas 2 meter. Bill sama Zizi. Jadi saya makin kelihatan pendek aja gitu ya. Tapi saya mungkin, let me just introduce Bill a little bit. I think if I want to describe you, Bill, you've done it all, I guess, right? You've been a consultant, you've been in investment banking, you've been working as an entrepreneur, right, and definitely as a venture capitalist, right, and also has a very, good background also, because you graduated from Harvard University with BA in Harvard University. You also had your MBA from Stanford University. So you've been in the east side, and then you've been on the west side, and then you've been on the best schools on both coasts, I guess. Bill also worked for McKinsey as a consultant, one of the most known consulting firm, and also in investment banking you worked with Brown Brothers Harriman. Right. But I think buat yang belum tahu, Bill also worked for Garage Ventures, right? Which is a leading edge seed stage and early stage venture capital fund based on Silicon Valley. And what Garage does is you make small investments in promising early stage technology company. Right. You work intensively with them. Right. And I think for buat teman-teman semua untuk diketahui, I think one of the most successful investments you made was the 2.4 billion US dollar, 2,4 billion US dollar, kurang lebih 20 triliun rupiah IPO, which Bill does for Pandora, exactly. Right, Bill? Right. So he certainly had a lot of experience both as entrepreneur, investment, venture capitalist, and also management consultant. So, Bill, I think want to share something with the audience, Wirausaha Muda Mandiri, particularly about how should the audience here can find ideas, start their business, and really make sure that when they see an opportunity, they will seize it, Bill. I think with your experience, maybe you can share some of your tips and knowledge a little bit with this audience.
Right. Well, and that's what I want to talk about today. And first though, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Bank Mandiri for giving me the opportunity to be here with all of you today. I want to add to my resume, my experience, very prominently, the opportunity to come here to Indonesia to meet an extraordinary group of entrepreneurs and to have the opportunity to be part of this incredible event. And I also want to congratulate all the winners from this morning. I want to congratulate all the finalists, and I want to congratulate all of you for being part of this extraordinary event. So, yes, it's I had the good opportunity to be here last year as well, and I was delighted to have the opportunity to come back and talk to you a little bit about how to change the world and share some of our perspectives on that. Before I do that, just to sort of answer your question about if you're a young entrepreneur and you're here in Indonesia and you see an opportunity to make the world somehow better in some small way, in some big way, the great thing that's happening right now is there's a community of support that's developing here in Indonesia, as typified by this event, as typified by all of the workshop coaches and mentors and the judges, all the people that have supported, Wirausaha Muda Mandiri and the Young Technopreneur competition. And so your chances now of being able to take your idea and turn it into a company and build a great sustainable company are better than they've ever been before. And that's tremendous progress, for Indonesia, and a tremendous opportunity for you. So should I jump into the rest of my presentation?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Can I jump up? I need to stand up.
Sure.
Okay, great. Great. So again, selamat siang. Apa kabar? Right. Thank you. So it is my great honor and distinct pleasure to have the opportunity to be with you here today. As I said, you are part of an extraordinary surge of entrepreneurship here in Indonesia and around the world. We see all over the world, in all sorts of countries, this surge of innovation and entrepreneurial spirit, and that's what's going to define the future. That's what's going to make the future of Indonesia, and it's what's going to make the future of the world. We started Garage Technology Ventures about 12 years ago to celebrate entrepreneurship and to reach out to entrepreneurs to help them launch their companies. The garage metaphor, the name garage, you may know, it comes from the icon of entrepreneurship in Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, a company called Hewlett-Packard was started in a garage. Another company called Apple Computer was started in a garage. Another company called Google was started in a garage. And so we thought, what a great icon for creating a firm designed to help entrepreneurs start up their startups. So over the years, we've worked with thousands of entrepreneurs. We have invested in a little over 150 companies. And so we've decided we want to bring our experience, the mistakes that we've made, the successes we've had, to entrepreneurs to help them be more successful. And in that spirit, what I want to talk about today is some of the things that we've learned about what it takes to change the world. And so the tagline of my presentation, the subtitle of my presentation, you'll notice, is Bridging the Gap Between Success and Brilliance. Now, what do I mean by that? So, truth is, a lot of people can be successful. In fact, all of you are already successful at some level. You've made it to university, you've made it beyond university, you are all successes, and you will likely continue to be successful, and that's great. But there's a gap between being successful and changing the world. And that's a big gap. But it's a great gap to close, and I want to talk a little bit about what it takes to bridge that gap, to turn yourself from being successful to being brilliant and changing the world. So I've got 10 rules that I want to share with you about what it takes to change the world. Rule number one is be true. Be true to yourself, be true to your friends and family, be true to your society. Be true to yourself. Generally we speak of that in terms of honesty and integrity. But I mean more than that. All of us, inside of us, we have this image of the person we want to be. And sometimes, from day to day, we don't quite live up to that, right? And I'm asking you, be true to that ideal person that you want to be. Every day, strive to be that person in the way you perform, the way you work with other people. Be true to your friends and family. That means things like loyalty and commitment. Because your friends and family are the foundation on which you build your life. You need their support. Their support is critical for you to achieve everything you want to achieve. And be true to your society, be true to your community, to your nation. And by that I don't mean just blind loyalty to your society. By that I mean, as with yourself, embrace the core values that make your society something you're proud of. Embrace those core values, and again, from time to time, we know in our societies, we don't always live up to those core values that we embrace. Strive to help your society live up to those core values. Be true to those core values of your society. So rule number one is be true, because you all know that people want to work with other people who are true deep down in their core. And so that's the first rule of changing the world. Rule number 2, be a problem solver. When you think about it, all of the great people that have changed the world deep down inside are problem solvers. So you take Mahatma Gandhi, right? So Mahatma Gandhi, he had a problem, how to free his nation. And he looked back through history and he said, violent revolution frequently causes more damage than good. This is a problem I need to solve. How can I avoid that damage? And he came up with a brilliant innovation, which was peaceful disobedience, peaceful resistance. And that enabled him to free his nation, and that has inspired generations of activists and leaders after him who have also followed on to change the world. Take, for example, the great scientists of history. Great scientists are searching to find the truth. They want to find the truth of how the universe works, the laws of nature. That's a problem to solve. And great scientists are also great innovators. Great scientists figure out new ways to explain what's going on in the universe. And they create breakthrough scientific theories in their search for the truth. Take great inventors and great engineers like Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb, or Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the World Wide Web. They were problem solvers. They wanted to find technology that would work to address a problem that they thought was a big problem. And then take the great entrepreneurs of the world, the people who have built great companies that have changed the world. If you think about it, great entrepreneurs are also problem solvers, but they're going beyond just finding great technology that works. A great entrepreneur is trying to solve the problem of how to create value for his or her customers, how to create value for his or her employees, how to create value for his or her society. So fundamentally, a great entrepreneur who wants to change the world is a problem solver looking for a way to create value for society. Rule number 3, be an optimist, right? So we were talking earlier today about positive energy. Being an optimist is an incredibly powerful resource for an entrepreneur to help them change the world. Now, in fact, most entrepreneurs are genetically wired to be optimistic, right? So kind of by definition, if you're an entrepreneur, you're choosing not to take the safe and traditional path. You're choosing to take a different path, to go do something that nobody else has done, to start up a company to solve a problem that nobody else has solved. So almost by definition, you're an optimist. In fact, we meet a lot of entrepreneurs who are almost pathologically optimistic. They are so optimistic they can't think any way else. But the reality is, to do what you need to do as an entrepreneur, you've got to have the courage to take the leap, to jump off the traditional path and do something that nobody else has done before. And I think courage and optimism are fundamentally deeply interwoven, right? Because courage is motivated by the belief that if I go try to do this thing, it will work out all right. So being an optimist is about being willing to take the leap because you know it's going to work out all right. So here's a small example. So this is a picture of a guy who is jumping off a 60-story tower. It happens the tower is in New Zealand. So obviously it takes a little courage to jump off a tower, and it takes optimism that it's going to work out all right at the end. So it happens. This is kind of a small example compared to what all of you are doing. But it happens that this person is me. This was me in New Zealand. And actually, the story is really a story of problem solving. Because I was in New Zealand, and I had been there for several days, and I was in a lot of conference rooms. And while I was in New Zealand, I realized that time was running out before I had to go home to America. And I thought to myself, if I go home to America without jumping off something, all my friends are going to be disappointed in me. So because, you know, if you're a tourist in New Zealand, you've got to jump off things. That's what they do in New Zealand. They are the inventors of bungee jumping. So I had a problem I had to solve, and the problem I had to solve was I had to find something to jump off of. And I saw this tower, and I asked my friend, who was a Kiwi, if I could jump off that tower. And he looked at me and he said, "What, are you crazy? Why would you want to jump off the tower?" So it was an interesting perspective. To me, I was solving a problem. I was solving a problem, and I was optimistic it was going to work out fine. To my friend, I was crazy. And that's the life of an entrepreneur. The life of an entrepreneur is you decide to take a leap, and a lot of your friends think you're crazy. But to you, it's not crazy at all. To an entrepreneur, it just makes sense to do what you're doing. And so you're willing to take the leap because, as an entrepreneur, you're an optimist. So be an optimist. Rule number 4. Rule number 4 is change your mind. Now, the great thing about university is university takes young minds and it packs them full of knowledge and it shapes them into something good, we hope, right? That's the wonderful thing about university. And then you leave university and you go off into the real world. And, you know, while you're at university, the premium is on being right, correct? Right? So, you know, you take your exams, you write your papers, and your objective is to be right. And you're measured on how right you are. And the more right you are, the better you do in school. So there's this big emphasis in university, in schooling, there's a big emphasis on being right. And so you're all successful, you graduate from university, you go out into the real world, and in the real world, you know you're right? That's what you've learned. Now, I don't know, has anybody here ever come across someone who disagrees with them, right? It happens every once in a while, right? You've met somebody who disagrees with you. And so when you come across somebody who disagrees with you, have you ever noticed how they're wrong and you're right, you know, almost all the time, right? They're wrong and you're right. That's kind of the way we experience life. And that's because we've been trained to believe that it is a weakness to admit that you're wrong. We've been trained to believe that if you're a good, strong person, then you're right, and you don't admit you're wrong. And I want to tell you now, it's a strength to be willing to change your mind. You need to take the opportunity when you come across people who disagree with you, you need to take that opportunity to think that maybe you are wrong, and then consciously change the way you think, because that's exercising your brain, and that's making your brain more nimble. Because the reality is, when you're an entrepreneur, if you want to change the world, unlike university, where the problems are pretty well defined, right? The professors tell you, here's the problem we want you to answer. I know what the solution is. I want you to tell me what the solution is. Problems are well defined in the university. In the real world, the problems are not that well defined. And so, you know, how do you solve poverty? How do you solve the energy crisis? How do you solve all of these problems in the world? It's not so easy to know what is right. And so we come to opinions about what we think might be right, but the chances are we're going to have to modify those opinions. So it's critically valuable that you have the skill to change the way you think, to change the way you look at the world, to see things that are not well defined in new ways. Because only then can you come up with innovations to change the way to change your approach to the world? So I encourage all of you, if you want to have an impact on the world, if you want to change the world, you need to make sure that you're continuously learning how to learn, that you keep your mind open, that you be willing to change your mind as you discover new facts. So rule number 4 is change your mind. Rule number 5 is build a team. Because the reality is nothing important is ever done alone. Now we have created this mythology of brilliant entrepreneurs, right? So we think of Bill Gates and we think of Steve Jobs and we think of Mark Zuckerberg as these brilliant individual entrepreneurs. But if you look at the history of the companies that they started up, you realize part of their brilliance was they built a brilliant team around them. They could not do it alone. They had to find talented people who complemented their skills, because in each case, they were not capable of doing everything they needed to do to build a huge, successful company. So don't believe that you can do it alone. Focus on building a brilliant team. The problem with university, again, and I don't mean to be criticizing universities, because universities are really good. But one of the problems with university is the focus is on you as an individual, right? I mean, the focus is on, what you can do on the exam, what you can do on the paper, which hopefully you've done as an individual. At least that's what your professors hope. And so you're trained to believe that the entire focus is on your individual capability. But you go out into the real world, and what enables you to be most successful, what enables you to change the world, is if you can build a team around you. Because it's that team that enables you to build a hugely successful company. Rule number 6. Rule number 6 is be intolerant. Now, this is a little controversial because we sort of think of intolerant people as being bad people or obnoxious people or people we don't want to be with. And I'm not asking you to be that sort of intolerant person. What I mean is I want you to be intolerant of your own mistakes first, right? Because it's hard to criticize other people if you're not holding yourself to a higher standard as well. So first, be intolerant of your own mistakes. And then it's also important that you be intolerant of naysayers and bozos. Now, I don't know if you know what a bozo is, right? Has bozo made it over to Indonesia? So a bozo is a clown, right? A bozo is a clown. A bozo is a person who makes a lot of noise but accomplishes nothing meaningful. A naysayer is a person who tells you, you can't do that, or that's crazy. And what I'm saying is be intolerant of those people. Stay away from those people who will tell you that you can't do what you want to do, who will make a lot of noise and accomplish nothing. Get away from those people. And also, you need to be intolerant of destroyers. Now, destroyers are people who actively resist you. And unfortunately, sometimes you'll find destroyers inside your company that for some reason, whether it's envy or jealousy, they don't want you to succeed. You got to get away from those people. Sometimes you find the destroyers in your community. Again, people who don't want to see your company succeed because somehow they are jealous or envious of you. And sometimes we find the destroyers at the highest level of our nation. And these are people who, for whatever reason, again, are not supporting the vision that you're trying to achieve. And so it's important that you and all of your other entrepreneur friends band together and get rid of those destroyers. It's the great thing. It's the great thing about democracy, that that's what it enables us to do. Democracy enables us to band together and get rid of those who are destroying our values. So get rid of the destroyers. Now, I do mean the kind of destroyers who are not constructive. So earlier today, I believe the Vice President talked about Schumpeter and creative destruction. And creative destruction is a good kind of destruction because it means replacing the old with a better new. But when I talk about destroyers, I mean people who do not want progress, people who do not want to see the world become better. So rule number 6 is be intolerant. Rule number 7. Rule number 7 is fail. So you're probably saying, what? What? Why do you want me to fail? Well, I don't want you to fail in the big things. I want you to fail in the little things that you need to work on in order to create something big. What do I mean by that? When you're starting up a company, when you're building a company, there are a lot of things you don't know. And the only way you can find out the answers to will the customers like our product, or will we be able to beat the competition, or will the pricing we have, will the pricing work? The only way you can know is to try. And you've got to keep trying. And when you try, you're likely to fail some of the time. But that kind of failure is a good thing. If you learn from your failure, if you try something and you learn from your failure, then that's a good thing, and that helps you make progress. And that helps you succeed in the long term. So what I'm saying is, sort of like a sports analogy, I want you to take a lot of shots, right? So now, how many people here remember Michael Jordan, the basketball player? Do you know Michael Jordan, the basketball player? Right. Okay, good. Right. So one of the amazing statistics about Michael Jordan is that in 1 year, he missed more shots than anyone else in the National Basketball Association. He missed more shots. Now that sounds odd, right? Because he was one of the most successful basketball players in history. How could he miss more shots than anyone else? The reason is he took more shots. He took more shots. And only by taking a lot of shots do you get a lot of baskets, but it also means you miss a lot and you learn from your mistakes, right? That's what I'm asking you to do. Take a lot of shots. Don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of getting it wrong. Because if you get it wrong and you learn from getting it wrong, next time you'll do it right and you'll be better than anyone else. So rule number 7 is fail. Rule number 8 is be unreasonable. Now again, that sounds kind of negative, right? But what I really mean by this is you've got to choose to do a different path, to take a different path. It's reasonable to follow a traditional path. It's reasonable to do what your parents expect. It's kind of unreasonable to do something your parents don't expect. It's kind of unreasonable to take this crazy path of being an entrepreneur. But that's what I'm asking you to do. Be unreasonable. The concept comes from a famous quotation by the philosopher and author George Bernard Shaw, who said, "The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man or woman." He should have inserted that, right? But the point is, it's reasonable to go along with the way the world is. It's unreasonable to think that you can change the world. But the only way you can change the world is if you try. And if it's unreasonable from your parents' point of view, if it's unreasonable from your friends' point of view to try to change the world, so be it. But that's the only way that you're going to have an impact. So the rule is be unreasonable. Rule number 9. Rule number 9 is steal. Again, I may be at risk here. What I mean by steal is I want you to steal ideas. I want you to steal talent. I don't want you to steal money. Okay? Okay? Okay, all right. Okay. So what do I mean by steal ideas? So, one of the problems, I think, one of the problems in our society and our culture is when we talk about being creative, we put too much emphasis on being original. So what we have created in our cultures is the idea that the person who invents something new is superior to the person who takes something new and turns it into something big. And what I'm saying is it's a lot easier and it's a lot better to go out and look at all of the brilliant innovations that are out there. You've got all of the inventors, you've got all the engineers who have come up with these really cool technologies, with these really cool discoveries. Your creative genius is not going to be in being original. Your creative genius is in pulling together the brilliant innovations of others and putting it together into something new and different that will solve a big problem and help you grow a big company. So again, we have this mythology about brilliant entrepreneurs being inventors. But the reality is you look at the brilliant entrepreneurs and you realize most brilliant entrepreneurs are thieves. And the classic example is Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was a brilliant entrepreneur, but he didn't invent the microcomputer. He didn't invent the mouse. He didn't invent the Windows interface. He did not invent the MP3 player. He did not invent the smartphone. He didn't invent any of those things, right? But what he did is he saw innovations in the world around him. In a science lab here, in a research lab there, he saw these innovations and he pulled them together and he put them together into these new devices that the world has never seen before. That's why you should learn to steal. So earlier today, our speaker, the film director, he made a similar point. He said it differently, though. His point was read voraciously. He didn't go so far as to say steal. I don't think he wanted to say steal. I'm going that far. I'm telling you, what a lot of creative people do is they steal, or maybe you could say they borrow, right, from other people, and their innovation is putting it together in a new way. So go out there, don't hide in your room and try to invent something. Go out to the world and find out what are all the brilliant innovations that I can borrow and build my company around. Rule number 9, steal. And rule number 10. Rule number 10 is create delight. So the reality out there in the world today is we're all kind of trained to meet a certain standard, right? In university, there's a standard that says if you can do this, you can get an A, right? In the corporate world, there's a standard that if you do your job, then we'll promote you, we won't fire you. So we're surrounded by these standards that say, do a good enough job and you will be successful. What I'm saying is, good enough is not good enough. You've got to set a new bar. You've got to take it to a much higher level of a standard. You've got to go from being good enough to creating delight. And again, the best example we've seen recently of a company that has learned how to create delight is Apple Computer, right? So Apple Computer took the idea of the smartphone, they took the idea of the MP3 player, and they turned it into something that was delightful to own and to use. It was more than just a tool. It was something delightful. But you don't have to be a consumer product company to create delight. You can create delight in anything you're doing. If you're implementing a new renewable energy resource, you can create delight by bringing electricity to a village that has never had electricity before. Can you imagine how delightful that is? If you're selling a product to a corporation, you can create delight by enabling the people in that company to do things that they've never been able to do before. That's creating delight. And that's what the world most wants and needs. It's not good enough to be good enough. You need to create delight. And if you create delight, then the world will reward you for it. So, I had the opportunity, I think we have time, I have the opportunity for one more sort of bonus rule. One more bonus rule. So the bonus rule that we heard Professor Habibi, or I should say Grandpa Habibi, right? Grandpa Habibi. Right. Grandpa Habibi. What an inspiring man. Just wonderful. So, but I believe strongly in one of the things that he said. And this is my bonus rule for all of you. My bonus rule is, it's about love. It's about love. Okay? So if you want to be an entrepreneur, right? So you get training in entrepreneurship, and they teach you about finance, and they teach you about marketing, and they teach you about product, and they teach you about business model. So you learn all this stuff about being an entrepreneur, and you think entrepreneurship is doing a bunch of things right, doing them well, putting together a logical, rational business plan to build a successful company, and then running it with good managerial principles. And that's all true, and that's all fair. But again, it's not good enough. The dirty little secret that I learned when I moved from university out into the real world, I learned that people are not rational. And that was a huge shock to me, because I thought that the way the world worked was that if you have good facts and you have good arguments and you have compelling information, that's the way you convince the world to do things the way you want them to do it, right? I thought that people were rational. And if you showed them the facts and you showed them something that was better, that they would make a logical, rational decision to do it. But that's not the way the world works, as it turns out. The way the world works is people, when they're making a decision about buying something, for example, or investing in something, for example, buyers and investors, they don't make rational, logical decisions. They make emotional decisions. They make emotional decisions. What happens is they see something and they fall in love. And then they decide, okay, am I making a mistake here? But the first most important aspect of decision making is emotional. People fall in love. They fall in love in my world of entrepreneurship and high technology. People fall in love with entrepreneurs. We fall in love with entrepreneurs all the time. We see these smart, articulate, passionate, enthusiastic entrepreneurs, and we say, we want to work with these people, right? So you work with people you fall in love with. You don't work with people that are rationally good people. You fall in love. Sometimes we fall in love with technology. Sometimes we see a technology that is so cool, that's so amazing, that the world has never seen before. We fall in love with technology, and then we decide, should we invest in it? Should we use it? Should we buy it? And sometimes we fall in love with a vision of how to change the world. Sometimes we hear an idea about how to change the world and we say, wow, that's something I want to be a part of. And so for you, as entrepreneurs in your life, the big trick is not how to be smarter, more logical, more rational, more compelling with your arguments. The big trick is to figure out, how do I make other people fall in love? Right? And so one of the ways to do that is you have to be in love yourself. Because that emotion comes out. And that's what we call the passionate entrepreneur. The entrepreneur who is passionately in love with the vision of what they want to do. Passionate about changing the world. So passion is also about love. So my bonus rule is it's all about love. Be passionate in whatever you do. And if you're passionate, then others will also fall in love and become passionate about what you're doing. So those are my top 10 rules for how to change the world. Be true, be a problem solver, be an optimist, change your mind, build a team, be intolerant, fail at the small things, succeed at the big things, be unreasonable, steal good ideas, steal good talent, create delight, and my bonus rule is it's all about the love. So thank you very much. I want you all to go forth and change the world, okay? Okay? Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to be a little bold here. I'm going to be a little bold. And so what I just did, what I put up, is we're going to have a question and answer session now, right? We're going to have a question and answer session. But if for some reason your question doesn't get answered, or if you have a follow-up question or an idea or an argument, there's my email. There's my Twitter account. You can feel free to contact me. I'd be delighted to hear from you. And I can't guarantee I'll get back to you immediately, okay? Give me a chance. But I'm willing to share with you my Twitter address and my email if you have any follow-up that you would like, okay? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. That was very inspiring. So now we open question and answer. Kita buka satu sesi untuk 3 penanya. Satu udah di situ. Yang kedua itu udah diantar dia. Kemudian 2. Mbak yang di belakang, yang kacamata, yes. Silakan yang ini dulu. 3 penanya dulu.
Check. Okay, thank you for the chance.
Where are we?
Here, sir.
Okay.
I'm so small gender. Okay, it's amazing experience to come to this event. It is my second chance to meet you, Mr. Bill. I'm so proud. And I want to say thank to Bank Mandiri who has make this event. Okay, I'll go to my question. It's a simple question, sir. How do you define variation in innovations? How do you define it?
How do you differentiate between innovations that you see?
No, definite.
Definite apa sih?
Make a definition, sir.
How do you define innovation?
No, I mean.
Bahasa Indonesia.
Okay. Oke. Pertanyaannya seperti ini, Pak.
Ya.
Saya ingin Mr. Bill bisa menjelaskan kepada kita semua di sini mengenai variasi dalam inovasi itu sendiri.
Oh, okay. The variety of innovation.
Yes.
What are the various innovations? So if you want to classify one innovation to the other, how do you define or categorize the innovation? Gitu ya?
Yes. Yeah.
Lebih satu aja kan ya? Makasih. Dengan siapa dari mana?
Fauzi dari IPB.
Right.
Fauzi dari IPB.
So am I going to answer or we're just collecting questions?
We're collecting 3 questions and then you answer.
Okay.
Second question dari situ, Mas.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. for coming to Indonesia. I'm Airlangga from Prasetya Muda Business School. That I want to ask is how to protect our brilliant idea from our competitors. And then that Steve Jobs and then the CEO of Microsoft, they only have one partner, not two, 3, 4, or 5. Why they just have one partner? Can you make your idea or your answer? Thank you very much.
Terima kasih.
Okay.
Terakhir Mbak, silakan nama dan institusi.
My name is Mutia Suryani. I'm a Universitas Pakuan Bogor. Reality, if we be success, is the route is the runs uphill, whereas many people would fraud or cheat. Example, corruption, bribery, and many other snaky ways that could have brought us so. My question is, how to motivation myself and my friend in here, how to until to goal be the best to me and all people not to fraud. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the question is, how do you actually motivate yourself, and how is it that you are going to motivate yourself to avoid yourself from corruptive action, corruptive behavior and all that, because we see so many people are actually, doing frauds, doing corruptions, but to be successful, how do you actually motivate yourself? So we have, please,
Okay.
Bill,
Okay.
first question,
All right.
category of innovation.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the energy in the room to come forth and ask questions, and I hope we can get to a lot of questions. So I'll try to be succinct, which is sometimes a challenge for me, so bear with me. But first question, how do you define innovation? Well, that's a really tough question. It's a great question. But in our world of venture investing, of working with entrepreneurs, we see 2 basic categories of innovation. One category of innovation is technical innovation, where you see entrepreneurs, generally engineering teams, who have taken a technology and made something new and different that can perform at some compelling higher level. So we see a technology that can make data centers twice as efficient. We see technologies that can increase renewable energy by a factor of 4. We see these novel technologies that enable people to do things or enable things that are compellingly better. So one category of innovation is indeed technology innovation. Another category of innovation is business model innovation. And so we see companies that are using technologies that are out there. They may never have been combined together before in exactly the same way, but in this case, they may be taking different technologies off the shelf, putting them together to enable a business that has never been done before. And so we see this a lot. For example, Facebook is a great example. Google is a great example of taking standard technologies. There wasn't any technology innovation there. It was almost entirely a business model innovation. Google, take that as an example, right? So Google, the fundamental technology was search engine technology. And yes, there was some innovation in that technology, and they did some different things that other people hadn't done before, but it wasn't really fundamental technology innovation. It was just choosing a different pathway for measuring the relevance of a web page. The big thing that made Google was pay-per-click advertising. The entire business of Google is all about advertising and using advertising that's relevant to the search. And that's where Google gets almost all of its revenues. Google did not invent pay-per-click advertising. Another company called Overture invented pay-per-click advertising. Google stole the idea and implemented it within their own technology, and they then had a new business model for monetizing search. Now, this is an example. Google is a little bit of an extreme example. I say they stole the idea. Actually, they were sued in court, and they had to pay $100 million for stealing that idea. But, you know, as a $50 billion company, what's $100 million, right? Whatever. So those are the two types of innovation. Hardcore technical innovation, and then business model innovation, doing business in a new way that hasn't been done before. So
can I have a follow-up question?
Pardon?
Can I have a follow-up question?
Sure.
Based on your experience, which one is more sustainable and more successful?
I would say there's no inherent advantage you could claim that one is necessarily going to be more successful than the other. One of the best examples and the highest example of technology innovation is Intel. So Intel is one of the few companies in the planet that made its primary business out of a technology they invented entirely themselves. You know, Intel invented the microprocessor, and they became the largest semiconductor company on the planet with a hard technology innovation. And on the other hand, you've got companies that are highly successful, like Facebook and Google, which are primarily business model innovations and not technical innovations. So, as an investor, I have no inherent bias that says if you're technical innovation or you're a business model innovation, that I like one of you better than the other. My bias, which actually comes to this second question, is can you establish a competitive advantage that is sustainable over time? And so traditionally, it's easier for a technical innovation to maintain a competitive advantage over time, thanks in part to patent laws. But really, it's not so much patent laws that enable you to protect your innovation as it is your team. Because the way to sustain a competitive advantage is to stay out in front of the competition. You cannot innovate once, start a company, and then sit back and think that that innovation is good enough. You've got to keep innovating. You've got to keep staying ahead of the competition. And so one of the questions was, how do we protect our innovations? And the reality is, it's probably not your innovation. I'm willing to bet. We have companies come into our office all the time, and they've got some cool technology or some cool idea, and they believe that they're the only people on the planet who have ever thought of this. And the reality is that in the past 2 months, we've seen 3 other teams come in with almost exactly the same thing, right? So the challenge, we hear this all the time from entrepreneurs. Gee, I'm worried about telling anybody about my innovation because they'll steal it, right? And I told you, I want you all to steal from everybody, right? So I'm endorsing stealing. But I'm also saying that if you have an innovation, the way you're going to be able to protect that innovation is to get out there, you win customers, you continue innovating, and you stay out ahead of the competition. So unfortunately, the reality is, I don't care how good your idea is, I don't care how good your innovation is, probably somebody else has thought of it. And no matter what you do to protect it, probably somebody's going to steal it if it's really good. And so the reaction of the entrepreneur is, oh my gosh, if somebody's going to steal it, then I better keep it quiet. And that's the exactly wrong reaction. Because if you keep it quiet, nobody's going to fall in love with you. Nobody's going to get excited about what you're doing. You got to get out there in the market, and you got to build a company. So the best way to protect your innovation is to keep on improving it. Now, there was another question. There was another question about how, I think the question was, well, Bill Gates only had one partner, and Steve Jobs only had one partner, and that's not true. It's not true. I mean, yes, Bill Gates started with Paul Allen, but there were 10 or 12 other people around them right early on. In fact, before Bill Gates even joined Paul Allen, there was another team that was already there. So yes, Paul Allen, old buddy of Bill Gates, he gets credit for being the co-founder, but it was more than just Paul Allen. Same thing with Steve Jobs. As soon as Steve Wozniak, his co-founder, got together, they added a guy named Mike Markula. And Mike then added other people, and then they added other people. So yeah, you cannot start your company with 15, 20, or 30 people day one. That's right. But you have to keep adding talent. You have to keep adding partners as you're building your company, as you're building your team. So, and then the third question was, I think it was a two-part question. One was, how do you keep yourself motivated, right? That was the question. How do you keep yourself motivated? How do you keep your team motivated? And that was the first part. And then the second part was, how do you keep from being seduced by corruption? That's the way I heard that, right? So, wow. Okay, let's start with the first question. I tell you, the reality is I have never seen an entrepreneurial team that failed to be motivated. I've never seen a true entrepreneur who wasn't motivated. And, it's sort of the definition of the entrepreneur. Now, I've seen entrepreneurs give up. I have seen entrepreneurs give up, and sometimes I'll tell you that's the right thing to do. Now, most speakers, most inspirational speakers talking to entrepreneurs will say, never give up, never give up, And that's the spirit that I want you all to have, but sometimes it's not going to work. Sometimes it's not going to work, and you've got to learn from that, and maybe you restart something else. But the point is, all the entrepreneurs I've met, are incredibly motivated because the way they think is, I cannot do anything other than what I'm doing now. Because what I'm doing now is so important. How could I possibly do anything else? And so there's so much internal motivation. I've never come across a situation where you've got to figure out how to motivate them. So, it's intrinsic. If someone on your team seems to lose motivation, that's a huge data point for you. It suggests that that person is no longer the right member of your team. And you need to sit down with that person and say, hey, I see you're not motivated anymore. That's your decision, but you're off the bus. You're not part of this team anymore because the rest of us, we are totally motivated. Now the question about corruption. Boy, I got to tell you, I'm not sure I have got a good answer for that, in the sense that, I've been very lucky and have been in circumstances where I haven't had to worry about that. I know people do have to worry about that. And all I can say is, it's up to you and your own personal value set and what you believe to be true. Rule number one. You have got to be true. And if you corrupt yourself by falling by being seduced by corruption, eventually it will fall apart, I predict. Now, I say that, and unfortunately, we look around the world and we see corrupt people winning. And it's extremely frustrating, and it really challenges our values to see corrupt people winning. How can that be? That's not the way the world is supposed to be. So it's really hard, but you have to resist it, and at some level you have to fight it. Because at some level, that corruption is a cancer on your community. And you have to get together with other people who are true to your values the way you are and say, we will not let this stand. And so that's all I can say, is you have the inner value that says, of course I'm not going to fall to that. And you have the inner value that says, I'm going to fight that, I'm going to resist that. And that's my best answer for that. Okay?
Thank you, Bill. So, kita mulai yang kedua, kalau ada dari atas. Nggak ada ya? Ya udah deh, dari bawah ya deh. Oh, ada yang bisa bantu nggak, yang bisa kasih mic ke yang itu, Mbak yang di atas tuh? Satu. Aduh, susah ini. Dua. Ya, kamu. Satu lagi di atas. Tiga di atas, tiga. Sorry, bentar. Atas kasih dong kesempatan. Iya kamu. Stand di situ. Mulai dari yang di atas dulu, yang pertama. Ya. Terus udah gitu Mbak yang di bawah, terus Mas yang di atas itu tadi ya. Oke.
Is there anybody up there? Are you looking up there? Oh, there is. Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, all. My name is Elvira Suryani. I'm from Islamic University 45 in Bekasi. It's a wonderful day today. I really like to come here, and then I can meet Mr. Bill. I want to ask something about you. If we have idea and talents, and then we have an invention, and then we want to share it other, and I want to success together with all people. And what do you think about my idea? Thank you.
Coba diulangi dalam bahasa Indonesia tapi kali ini, sorry ya. Supaya lebih clear aja, sorry.
Maksudnya gini, jika saya punya ide-ide, kemudian bakat dan penemuan-penemuan baru, kemudian saya ingin membaginya dengan orang lain, kemudian saya ingin sukses bersama dengan orang lain, jadi saya tidak ingin sukses sendiri. Nah, bagaimana menurut pendapat Mr. Bill sendiri? Itu, terima kasih.
Are you clear about the question, Bill?
No.
Okay. So mainly the question was, if I have an innovation or some ideas,
right,
and I really want to share it with people surrounding me,
right,
and to make sure that people surrounding me and myself is going to be successful, how am I going to be able to do it?
How do you share your ideas with people?
People
Okay.
around us.
Okay.
And then be successful together.
Okay.
Gitu kan, kurang lebih
All
kan?
right. Okay.
Ya, silakan satu yang di bawah tadi, Mbak. Ayo cepat.
Hello, I'm gonna make to the point. My name is Martin Latifani. I'm from University of Indonesia. I wanna ask about one of the rules, be intolerant. You've mentioned about being intolerant of destroyers. And you've explained that destroyers are people that make any progress and so forth. How about the hobby seems useless and waste our time enough? Is it included to be the destroyers? Thank you.
Mbak, maaf ya. Dalam bahasa mungkin boleh.
Tadi sebelumnya kan disebutkan kalau salah satu aturannya the rule itu kan be intolerant against destroyer. Intolerant, yes. Yeah.
Oke, terus.
Dan disebutkan tadi kalau be destroyernya itu orang-orang yang tidak membuat kemajuan dan disebutkan tuh orang dan orang. Bagaimana dengan hobi kita? Hobi kita juga termasuk tidak membuang-buang waktu. Apakah itu termasuk kita jadikan menjadi be intolerant yang disebut destroyer?
Oke, makasih. So the question was one of the top 10 rules were be intolerant.
Right.
But what if one of the thing that I have to be intolerant are my bad habits?
Her own bad habits?
Yeah.
Yep.
So how do you actually work against that?
Got it.
How do you actually be intolerant against your own bad habit?
Okay, that's a great question. Okay.
Great question, Mbak. Terima kasih.
That's a great question.
Yang terakhir yang di atas. Silakan, Mas.
Selamat siang, nama saya Mulia Sahid dari Universitas Sahid. Dari awal kita diajarkan tentang hal-hal yang idealis. Namun dalam dunia entrepreneurship, praktisnya banyak yang menggunakan cara yang mudah untuk menjadi sukses dan menyingkirkan orang-orang yang idealis. Bagaimana kita menghadapi hal tersebut tanpa menyingkirkan hal idealis agar tidak dapat tersingkirkan dari dunia entrepreneurship?
So,
I almost got it.
So what he's saying is, Bill, we talk about the good things today, right? Be a problem solver, change the world, and so on and so forth. But in reality, there are people who are backstabbers, who steals ideas from you, who are, annoying people, stuff, things like that lah.
Right.
Backstabbers mostly, political, not very So how do you actually be successful and be able to be a successful entrepreneur, but you are getting yourself surrounded by all of these people who are backstabbers, steals from you, negatives, things like that.
Okay.
In reality, how do you actually do it?
Right.
Because those are nice top 10 rules,
Yeah.
but in reality, things may not actually be as rosy as what we have actually been discussing.
Okay. I never said it was rosy. I never said it was rosy. Okay. So should we go for it? Okay. So the first question had to do with how do I share my ideas with those around me, with the people I want to bring in to my team, either potential co-workers, co-founders, or even potential customers or other partners. How do I go about sharing my ideas when it's still very early on and I'm just forming my company? And that's a challenge everyone has. And so what I first go to is don't be worried about people stealing your ideas, because the reality is that most other people are chasing something else. So focus on building your company and building your team and implementing your ideas. Now the way you do that is you've got to figure out a clear, compelling, and credible way to articulate your ideas. And the problem that a lot of entrepreneurs have, the problem that a lot of entrepreneurs have is they're so wrapped up in their ideas that it's really hard for them to tell their story effectively. So we encourage entrepreneurs to practice figuring out a way to tell their story in a way that will get people to say, wow. So, a little advertisement here for Garage. On our website at Garage, there's a guide for entrepreneurs called Getting to Wow. Getting to Wow. And the key is, if you're going to be successful, you need to figure out a way that you can bump into somebody and say, hey, this is what I'm working on. What do you think? And you've got to say it in a way that causes that person to go, wow, that is really exciting. How can I be involved? Excuse me. And so there are, that's a real art. It's a real art to communicate your idea well. And if you communicate it well, you will be much more efficient. So communicate it well to potential partners, communicate it well to potential customers, and get them to say, wow. And get them engaged in working with you to make the idea, to make the company even better. Talk to those potential customers and say, what can I do? What can I do to make this even better for you? Use the communication as a two-way opportunity. Don't just make it one way. It's not just about sort of telling your story to other people. It's got to be a dialogue. You want to solicit feedback from everybody. You want to find out, do they understand what you're saying? Are they excited about what you're saying? So figure out a way to get to wow so that you can engage people in helping you make your ideas even better. So that's the best way, I think, to share ideas. The next question. The next question was, I've told you to be intolerant. What if the person you're supposed to be intolerant of is yourself? Right? That was the question, right? And so, the reality is we are all imperfect. And this gets to the point I made about building a team. Because if you look at all of the brilliant entrepreneurs out there, what you'll discover is that all of them are deeply flawed in some way. All of them are deeply flawed in some way. All of us are deeply flawed in some way. None of us is perfect, right? And so you've got to build a team. You've got to have people next to you whom you trust to tell you, Bill, you're being a bozo. Now I have the great good fortune of working with a gentleman named Guy Kawasaki. Guy Kawasaki loves to tell me when I'm being a bozo. And I love Guy for that. And that's part of being partners. Because you can't always fix yourself. You can't always know when you're doing something that reflects your flaw. But you need to surround yourself with people who have complementary talents, who can point it out to you, who can help you be that better person that you really, really wish that you could be. And so then the third question was, again, had to do with being intolerant of bad people. In this case, the question was about backstabbers and naysayers who want to bring you down. And that was, the point I was trying to make. You will find that there are those people around you. And, Pakpahala, you were saying, okay, it's a rosy thing to say, well, avoid those people, because it may not be easy to avoid them. Sometimes what you find is that, some of the people who are negative are your own customers, right? And that's kind of a problem, because you don't want to avoid your own customers. But what I would say is, each situation is going to be specific. Sometimes if the backstabber is in your company, then you got to get that person out of your company. You have control over that. So there are situations where you can just get that person out of your company. Now there's a difference though. And it's important to make the distinction between people who disagree with you and people who are backstabbers. And sometimes, it feels as though a person who's disagreeing with you is actually stabbing you in the back. But maybe, just maybe, that person is telling you you're wrong, and it may be true that you are wrong. So, yeah, you got to be careful. You got to be careful. You cannot brand every person who disagrees with you as a backstabber or a naysayer, because sometimes you're wrong, right? Unless they're always doing it, right? So, again, that's the value of having partners. And what I've found in my own career is if I find a person that is somehow in the circle, if I find a person seems to be at some level destructive, a backstabber, a naysayer, what I'll do is I'll go talk to other people I trust, and I'll say, you know, I'm having this issue with this person. Is it me or is it this person? And, you know, go talk to other people you trust. Maybe it's fixable. You know, sometimes you can have a really talented engineer who has no social skills. You know, sometimes that happens. And, pardon? Or accountants. And what Pahala just said, should I? Okay, maybe it's not a software engineer, maybe it's an accountant, okay? Whatever. Sometimes you come across people who do not have good social skills. Maybe you can help them become better. Maybe you can help them focus on the strengths they have and somehow diminish the weaknesses, the backstabbing, the negativity. Maybe you can fix that. So yes, it's not easy. I never said it was rosy. It's, you know, you've got to deal with each situation as it comes. But the reality is you've got to deal with it. You can't avoid it. So you have a choice of separating yourself from that person, or fixing that person or yourself, or doing nothing. And the worst choice is to do nothing. So I encourage you, when you have those situations, address them head on. Create a culture in your company that says, we will not tolerate these kinds of negative acts. We will deal with them. And maybe dealing with them, you can fix them, maybe not. But deal with them. That's my recommendation.
Thank you, Bill. Kita berikan applause lagi untuk Bill. Karena keterbatasan waktu, kita hanya buka 2 sesi saja untuk tanya jawab. Mohon maaf buat teman-teman. Jadi kita sudahi sesi ini. So, thank you, Bill. I think that was very useful of the top 10 rules and some of the answers you gave. I think let's give a big applause to Bill Reichert.
Thank you very
Bill,
much.
maybe you want to say something, or you want to do something before we close?
Yes, so I have a favor I want to ask of all of you. So here's my favor. One of the things I love about Indonesia is wherever I go, I find, you know, groups of people who say, hey, can we get our picture taken together, right? I love that. So what I really want to do is I would like it if you guys would bear with me. I want to take a picture of Papahala and Zizi, the 3 of us together with all of you, okay? So, all right, can I get you all to stand up? I want you all to stand up. So come on down, okay? Great. So,
mungkin teman-teman bisa wave your hands,
okay.
Ya. Nah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go 1, 2, 3, change the world. Okay? 1, 2, 3, change the world. Okay? Ready? Ready? 1, 2, 3, change the world.
Okay, one more time.
One more time? Okay. Where's my iPhone? Where's my iPhone? There's my iPhone.
Maklum ya, orang bule kesini pengen foto nggak apa-apa.
Okay, please, patience, be patient
harus
with me.
bangga.
I really
buat
appreciate
Mr. Bill.
this.
Artinya dia bangga sama Indonesia. Okay, one more time.
Okay, one more time. You ready? Okay, good. Okay, photographers ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3, change the world!
iPhone-nya dia mana, Vicky?
Okay.
Thank you
That's
very
gotta be good.
much.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was a delight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bill,
Okay.
and thank you also to Papa Hala. And please, Papa Hala will give a souvenir to Mr. Bill for his participation in our talk show this afternoon. Thank you very much for the lesson we've received today. 10 ways to change the world. Well, I hope that we all could be the agent of change for ourselves and for the world.